Hey, welcome to Thursday Thrive. This is a series featuring people who have overcome adversity. If you want to know more about what it means to thrive or to see more stories, then check us out at edmundco.co. I hope you enjoy this story.
I'm Chris, and this is my story. I am originally from Nebraska, so I grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I'm one of three boys. So I got an older brother named Jeff and a younger brother named Sean. So growing up, I think you always look back and you think that you have the perfect family and the perfect childhood, and my family was great. And as I've grown, just recognizing different ways that we as a Redhage family did relationship. And so I've learned a lot from that. But grew up playing soccer. I am the runt of the family, so I'm 6'5". The runt, my younger brother Sean is 6'8". He plays professional basketball in Australia. And my older brother Jeff, he played college football at University of Kansas, and he was 6'6", 280, just a big guy. And we just grew up playing sports. And fairly early on, in middle school, I kind of grew into my body and started to recognize that I had a gift of being able to play soccer and being able to be charismatic from a leadership standpoint. So I think I kind of grew into really the gifts and the talents that I'm using today here in Nashville. So I studied leadership studies, which most people would think, what is that? But University of Richmond has the Jepson School of Leadership Studies, and it is the only undergraduate leadership school in the country where you can actually get a major in leadership studies. And so I studied that, and that was the perfect major for me. I'm not a book guy. I run a healthcare tech company now, and in college I got a D in business statistics, which is pretty funny, and that kind of leads a little bit earlier. I grew up actually had a learning disability, and so it was reading comprehension, and so I really had to learn my way. And once I was able to do that, I was able to keep up with people, but I was definitely not a straight A student. I was a B, C student. But went to University of Richmond, played soccer there, and just really enjoyed my time. Had some great friends. And I think that's actually where I grew into my faith and who I am today. I've got a best friend, Andrew Lewis, but I also met another best friend there, Aaron Graham, and he was my roommate in college, and we just really grew up together and really challenged each other to grow in our faith and use our gifts of leadership in the world. So after college, I went and played some professional soccer for a couple years. And in that time, made no money, but learned I would say, cut my teeth on being an entrepreneur. I was training kids. I was starting little small companies. And once I finished playing, I was actually a coach at the University of Nebraska. I was assistant coach for the women's soccer team, University of Nebraska, and that was fun. I mean, I was 23 years old, 24 years old, and coaching 18 to 22-year-old girls. They were basically my sisters, and I was assistant coach, and I was living out my dream. And in 2005, actually moved to Louisville, Kentucky. I got recruited there by a pretty wealthy individual to come start businesses. And I say that's the start of really me accomplishing a lot of my dreams outside of soccer and stuff, but also the beginning of a lot of tragedy in my life and recognizing the tragedy that I grew up with, not necessarily grew up with, but how I did relationship and how I was accessing a part of my heart and communicating and dealing with the feelings. And so I began to learn in 2005, kind of this journey began. So moved to Louisville, helped start a bunch of companies. There's like 3 companies that I got to be a part of. Met a girl, and then ended up getting married and moving down to Nashville. And so that's actually what brought me to Nashville. I got married and moved down here. So moved to Nashville 2008, got married, and actually that's when the financial recession began to start. So all the, I would say, tragedy began to happen. We actually hired a CFO for one of our companies, and over a short period of time, she came to me and told me that a guy who was actually leading my Bible study had embezzled about $500,000 over the last 2 years of that time frame. And basically we had to step in, and as a 28-year-old, I was beginning to lead these companies and really not just lead them, but save them in a lot of ways. I had to learn how to sell. It was a software SaaS company. And at the same time, I was involved in a couple of other business ventures with my partners. And one of the business mentors of mine ended up walking out on a bank loan to the tune of about $350,000. And so in a short period of time, literally 9 months, I had watched about $800,000 to $900,000 just poof, disappear. And I didn't know how to deal with that. I didn't know how to process the loneliness, the fear that I was feeling, and ultimately just internalized it. I grew up in Nebraska. I was a hardworking, Midwest boy. And so what do? You just roll up your sleeves and you get to work. And in the midst of that, the stress and the anxiety that came with that, and not knowing what was going to happen, I really destroyed my body. Along with that, I ended up living in mold, and I didn't know about that. And so I just got really, really sick, and no one could figure out why. And so that was 2008 through 2009. I was still sick. No one could really kind of figure out why. And at the same time, my wife at the time was going through residency. And one day she came home and said that she didn't want to be married and that she was done. And so over the course of literally a year and a half, I saw businesses blow up. I saw my health literally deteriorate to the point that the physician that I was going to ended up flying down to Houston to see a specialist. But he said I was the healthiest, sickest person he'd ever seen in his life, because I could run a 6-minute mile. But my body was just revved up inside because of mold and what was going on internally. And then I was watching my marriage, which, I didn't believe in divorce. I didn't want divorce, but divorce was happening to me. And so having to process that and live that, and there was a lot of shame, there was a lot of guilt around that. Recognizing someone that you care for and you love and you envision spending the rest of your life together, walking out and saying that she doesn't want to be married. And recognizing, what part did I play in that? How did I process my feelings? But at the end of the day, she decided she didn't want to be married. And so I had to learn how to let someone go within the confines of what I believed was what marriage was supposed to be. And so that was really hard. Having marriage, they talk about marriage redefined, and having marriage, really living through a broken marriage and not being able to save it. That was really hard. All right, so in December 2011 was when we kind of split up, and then it was the process of getting divorced. And someone who didn't believe in divorce and struggling with it, I was looking for any way to stop it. And finally you realize that you just have to trust God in the process. I had to feel my feelings. I had to tell the truth about what was going on and trust the process. So ultimately in February 2013, we got divorced. I was actually in Haiti because I just did not want to be even in the same continent when that happened. And so it was really hard. There was a ton of shame, there's a ton of guilt around it, but also recognizing that we all have free will. And you want to be loved by someone who loves you and wants to be in relationship with you. So trusting the process, I ended up getting on a plane in March of 2013, just about 3 weeks after the divorce. I came back from Haiti and sold my car. Obviously, I had been living in mold, so I got rid of all my stuff. And I got on a plane in March of 2013 and went to Australia for about a month. And the only thing I owned was about $20,000 in my bank account, stock in my company, and a bag of clothes. And so there I was as a 33-year-old young man who literally was watching his life just disintegrate. Everything that I had worked for fall apart. And so I specifically remember on the plane, looking out the window as I was taken out of Nashville and crying and just saying, all right, God, this is not the life that I want, but this is the life that you're calling me to, and this is my story, and I'm gonna use this story, and hopefully you use me in the process of it. Yeah, so going through this process, I've learned how to take care of myself. So I run, during the midst of that process, the company that I started called Provider Trust really took off. And so the tensions and the dichotomy of watching your health, watching a relationship, and watching a person that you care about walk away, and literally the world come crashing down. But in the midst of it, you started this high growth healthcare technology company that was winning technology startup of the year, high growth company of the year. We were hiring really talented people to come join this vision. And the whole time I was a mess. I was just struggling with getting out of bed in the morning and going to work, and to see God's hand in that and to see the company grow. So in the process of that, when I went to Australia, now I actually go to Australia once a year for about 3 or 4 weeks, and sometimes longer than that. But I went to Australia and just got loved on by my brother and my sister-in-law, and celebrated with him. He's a basketball player, so I went and watched games and traveled and really just said, all right, God, I have no clue what you're doing with this. This is not what I want, but I'm going to trust you in the process. So that really began the healing process for me, both physically and I think emotionally. Learning how to step into the story. It took me forever to tell people that I was divorced or that I was married at some point in time. And even though I don't want that part of my story, I am so thankful for that. So 3 years out, I could see all the things that I've been able to do over the last 3 years and be involved with and meet people. It's been amazing to see God's hand in that. And so in a really crazy way, I'm thankful for that. I don't want that, but I am thankful for that. So now, 2016, I am running, co-founder of Provider Trust. We have almost 50 employees. We're monitoring, I think it's like 1.6 million healthcare providers all over the country. And we just continue to double. And so we're a venture-backed company. I'm a co-owner of a professional soccer team that is starting in 2018 here in Nashville, called Nashville Soccer Club, Nashville SC. So that was just a dream of mine that with a bunch of really great friends, David Dill and Marcus Whitney, I've been able to invest and help start a professional soccer team, help bring a professional soccer team to Nashville, Tennessee. And then personally and relationship-wise, I still go to counseling. I still am processing just the lessons on a daily basis. And the hurt isn't acute, but there's still that loneliness. I do desire to meet someone and get married again and have a family, and learning to press into the loneliness, press into the fear of what's gonna happen. Will the dream of mine, I always say, my therapist, Stephen James, says, your vision of marriage will never be what it is. It could be better, but what you had, that picture of what you had, is never gonna happen. And so you have to step into that new picture and trust God that it could be even more beautiful, because now you have the skills, now you have the ability, and most of all, your heart. And so you can begin to process those feelings with with whoever God brings into your life. The hardest part of my story was going through the divorce. And I still to this day, when I'm filling out those forms and they ask you your status, and they're like married, single, divorced, widowed, I hate checking that box. And sometimes I check single, because I am single. But like, I hate that part of my story. And I think the tension there it's good, because I didn't want that, I don't want that, and I don't want that in the future. And I'm thankful for it. So it was the hardest part, but it's also the thing that I'm most thankful for, because I know that and the situation around that has caused me to know more of me and to become more of who God created me, and has given me a story to connect with people that are going through struggles, financial struggles, relationship struggles, health struggles. I mean, I kind of have the gamut. It's kind of funny that I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, because it's kind of a country music song. I mean, I lost the girl, I lost the money, I lost the dog, but at the same time, I have my life, and I'm very thankful for that. My biggest fear throughout this was that people would label me as divorced, and that I would never be able to date, that I would never be able to get married. I was really involved in the church, and so that was a big struggle around what would be my ministry opportunities moving forward. Once I'm done with Provider Trust, and I'll always be an entrepreneur, but one of my best friends is a pastor in DC of a very large church, and I had always had the dream and the vision of doing some type of ministry later in life. And so that's always a fear of mine, that people will use that against me, or a woman would meet me and say, oh, you're divorced, I don't want to date you, or I don't want to be involved because you have baggage. So I think that's just the fear, and that's been the furthest from the truth, which has been a really cool part of the story, is just seeing the grace and the love, and in a lot of ways just I have more of a colorful story now, as opposed to just the athlete who succeeds. I have failed, and failed a lot, and so, but just the fear of that was my biggest fear. My biggest advice is learning your heart, learning to connect to your heart. We all have pain, we all will go through hard times, but being able to know what you're feeling, and then telling the truth about that, and then trusting the process, and then having awesome friends. I mean, I don't know how many times when I was going through my divorce that I would call Andrew or Aaron, and I would literally be bawling. One time specifically, I was laying in my closet and I was crying, and it was during the separation and the divorce period, and Andrew asked, he's like, where are you? And I'm like, I'm laying in my closet. He's like, why are you in your closet? And it was the only place I could go where I could scream and yell, and people couldn't hear me. At least I thought people couldn't hear me. But I had nothing at that time. I was living on an air mattress. I had literally, I had like 5 shirts, a couple pairs of jeans. I had 1 suit. And, then I would get up and I'd go to work in the morning, and I would struggle building this high growth startup. And still to this day, I have no clue why we are as successful as we are during that time. Like, it was just, I would make 1 phone call and we would make this big sale, and then I would be out for 3 days. I'd come back and make 1 phone call. So it was really God's, it's God's story. And this is not my story, and so I'm learning to live it. So the greatest blessing throughout is I discovered my heart in this. And as you live life and as you grow, you begin to get calloused and you begin to be hurt and you begin to have fear. And my therapist, I think, said it best. He's like, you will know that you're healing well. Not good, but well. If you don't focus on filling up the hole in your heart, but you focus on growing your heart. So that part of your heart, that still there's a hole, there's still, you're gonna have all those feelings. That if you focus on growing your heart, it just becomes, it's a smaller part of your story, but it's still a part of your story. I think he gave this analogy. He said, when you're getting older and you're married and you have your kids and you're gonna be walking through the airport and all of a sudden you look up and you see your ex-wife and you're there with your wife and your kids and she sees your ex-wife and she's able to look at you and say, are you okay? And I'm able to tell her what my feelings are and at the same time look at her and tell her and ask her, are you okay? Because that shows me that I'm able to feel my feelings, I'm able to tell the truth, but I'm able to be in the moment and recognize that my feelings impact other people. And so I could then connect to her in those moments. And so I love that picture. It's not about filling the hole in my heart, but it's a vision of growing my heart. And so that's what I'm trying to do. And some days I get it right, some days I get it wrong. But even in the midst of getting it wrong, I'm still trying to tell the truth and trust the process. What wouldn't I change? I think that's the answer to me saying I would have loved to have written this story differently. But it is my story, so ultimately I wouldn't change a thing. The struggles, the pain, the hurt, the long nights, the tears, I wouldn't change that because that has given me a window into other people's lives. I now know when someone says, hey, I just broke up with a girl, or I just broke up with a guy, or my husband just came home and told me he was gonna divorce me. I now can step into those stories and fight for what I believe in, which is marriage, but at the same time, connect to their heart and connect to their feelings in a way that I never could have. So I wouldn't change a thing, but I would love it to have been different.